Welcome to Coffee and Pizza. I hope you can enjoy.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Coffee and Pizza. And for today, we have someone very, very special, the cybersecurity application evangelist, Chris Lindsey. Please, Chris, introduce yourself and thank you very much for coming here.
Thank you for having me. My name is Chris Lindsey, and to just give you a quick background, I wrote software for over 35 years, so I kind of know a little bit about development. I also ran an application security program for a very large enterprise for several years, so I kind of know that side. Growing up, it just kind of a lot of fun things. Back in 1979, just kind of went up, loved computers, did a lot of fun things that we don't talk about to this day, and just kind of have a good old time. But anyway, thank you for the invite.
No, my pleasure. Have someone like you for me is like a dream, because I was checking your profile and as you mentioned, like if you see your background, it's something like crazy. Not many people have the same background like you. And we're in cybersecurity because maybe 20 years ago we was like we can say freaks and no one's want to talk with us, something like that. It's like we are crappy people. Today, like be hacker is something like cool. You're gonna have movies, and I remember the movie Password, but I believe you are from my age. You remember the movie War Games, and I believe you come from this side.
I might have seen it at the theater, just kind of saying. No.
Really, I was born in 1983. Then I have the same time, but here in Spain, everything it's like come later. And I saw the movie when I was almost 9 years old, and I say, "Wow, I want to be like that." After this introduction, I want to mention like a bit for your background. Where are you from?
So I am from the United States, the state of Kansas. And if you know the area, Kansas City, Overland Park is the region that I actually live in.
But you was born there, or it's like you are living there at the moment?
So I actually was born and raised in Kansas City. The furthest that I traveled for college was Pittsburgh, Kansas. Pittsburgh State University. Was down there for 4 years and then came back to Kansas City.
Then you can say you love Kansas already, right?
It's all about the barbecue. Kansas City is well known for barbecue. So, I forget the mountains, forget the ocean, forget all the really cool stuff that you can do, just the barbecue.
I got you. Because it has totally sense.
Right,
And
right.
and like I want to know a little bit how was your when you was young? Like I want to understand like how Chris started to discover the computers. How was your approach to computers? Like how do you discover this world?
Right.
Often it's video games, but whatever you prefer to say.
A little bit of everything. Actually, it did start off with a video game. Back in 1979, I was on my brother's TRS-80 Model 1. Back then, they would actually produce magazines. And in the back of the magazine was a program that you would key in and you could play it. It was Crazy Climber. And it was just so much fun. And I just kind of got addicted to it. Back in 1984, I just got hooked on programming and on the Commodore 64. And I actually wrote a bulletin board piece of software for the Commodore 64 that I actually sold. And fun story, and actually talked about it on LinkedIn. Back in 1985, I sold I think I had probably 15 copies that I made and sold off. And a copy went all the way up into Canada and eventually found its way back to Kansas City. And my brother bought a whole slew of Commodore discs, and this was in there. And it was up from a Canadian users group. And my brother handed it back to me. We plugged it back in a Commodore 64 and it worked. So it's really cool. It's actually hanging up on my wall behind me, in front of me. And so, in 1984, really got into it. 1985, started doing a lot of programming. Ended up running one of Kansas City's largest bulletin boards called Camelot BBS. And so for those who are old enough to remember bulletin boards, that's what I did. I was Merlin. My brother was King Arthur, and we did a lot of things, a lot of fun things back then. And then went off to college. I was already programming professionally before even leaving high school, and wrote an entire cash register program in Pascal. And in college, I was trying to quiz out of this class, I asked the instructor and the dean of the university, I'm like, can I not have to do Pascal? I've already done it. They required me to be there. And funny story, the first day of class, I kind of made the teacher mad at me, asked me to come up, and he goes, if you're so smart, you teach the class. So I brought in my really big computer back then. And for those who remember those times in the 90s, we had those overhead light projectors, kind of like, in the classroom, they had that there with the active matrix screen. And I showed for 45 minutes the source code for my cash register program, and talked about what was right, what wasn't. And the teacher said, well, if I'm ever sick, you're going to teach my class, which I actually got to do a few times. So,
So of course, also you are talking about Pascal. Pascal is like a very old school, and today some people is looking for also for Pascal programmers because I believe some people is you have many software like how to say legacy software, and you have machines already working with that like the last 30 years, and if this software today have a problem, no one know how to fix it, right? And the company is just paying a big amounts of money for that, also for AS400. It's crazy, right? That like the people many times we are talking about like old school or something like that, but old school today, many companies is running this software, running this coding, and can be very, very interesting. If someone can be interested in this old school coding, start to learning it, right? I don't know from your side, what is your opinion?
Well, it's kind of funny because really back then it was very simple. We only had a few languages. We had C and C++. We had Pascal, basic visual, or Commodore Basic, IBM Basic. I mean, it was long before even Microsoft came out with theirs, and then eventually they did. And, they were simpler times, but you're right. I mean, COBOL and languages that, or the old languages were, anymore, you're starting to see universities trying to kind of have a class, at least so that somebody knows that language so it doesn't die off. The original people who were writing COBOL back in the 60s and 70s, they've retired. And you're right. I mean, they are struggling. There's applications running today that are still critical to the infrastructure, banks even, where they're running COBOL. And when they've tried to rewrite them in newer languages, they don't perform as well. And when you look at the different things, when I got out of programming about 5 years ago, I'm still doing stuff on the side for fun, keeping a little bit, my toe dipped in the water per se. But, the reality is, so many frameworks sit on top of things that it just really complicates and makes, you have all this automation, you have all this AI, this really cool stuff helping you. But, again, yeah. So long answer for a quick question.
Yeah. And also you mentioned something very interesting from my side, but I believe we're going to talk about that later, like about artificial intelligence and how you can use it today for programming. And what is your opinion? But instead of that, you said something I believe is like very, very nice one. You can share your passion with your other, right? And that's something very interesting because not many people have the same opportunity like you to share this opportunity or share this passion with your brother. I believe this was something for push you because today we have social media, you have internet, and you want to be better than other people. But at that time we don't have internet and have the motivation into wire close to you. I believe it was very interesting for your story, right?
Well, and the thing is when you look at how things were back then, I mean, you didn't have the internet, you didn't have the computers like we do today. Back then, Commodore 64, I actually worked at a software company or a retail software place that sold software. And I would pull them out, play with them there in the store, reshrink wrap them. That's kind of how just about everybody did back in the days, to show off, because people would want to see it before you would actually, take it home. They were expensive. And I still have the books, and, that were multiple inches thick of, for learning how to do things. We didn't have all the cool technologies that we do today. Google didn't exist. AI was far from even a dream. I mean, it was in movies and we kind of knew high level that it was there, but and everybody would always joke about code being able to write itself, and we're starting to get there. But the reality is, we were bored back then. We didn't have the things that we have today. And so the developers, the people back on computers back in the 80s and even the early 90s, we got out. We were the bike generation. We'd hop on our bike and go out and play until the lights came on. And that's when we knew it was time to come home and have dinner, is when those lights came on. And so we always had late dinners over the summertime. But the reality is, those relationships. I have two other brothers that are in IT as well, and one went down the networking path, one went down the development path, and then me, that I kind of love both.
That's very nice, because one of the things you said, like, it's very interesting, like the lights. We I remember when we was younger and we can go outside, we don't have phones and no one call you. That's, I believe, it's like a good time, when we have privacy and maybe we have the freedom, right? Today the people doesn't have the freedom and don't understand how important, how different can be. You have the possibility to do like that because you can leave your phone whatever you want. But the last podcast I was talking with someone, and he say, like, homeless, many times he's using phones, and the people say, if you are homeless, why you use phones? It's like, because I don't have another chance. Everything today is in the phone. If I want to go to healthcare, if I have a problem, if I want to call my friends, it's in the phone. And today, that's something like very interesting, and also is a vector. We can talk about that, like how we can say bad actors are using the phones to get profit of that. But the point I want to arrive here is, like, where you find the motivation to continue studying about that, and where you go. You went to the high school, and where you continue studying, like, about that.
So, back then, again, we just kind of worked out of books, and it was kind of fun because I knew so much more when the high school actually got its first Novell network. The guy was having trouble installing it, and I just happened to know a little bit about it, just simply for just having fun on the side. And so, kind of helping them. And, back then there were things that you could do that would easily be considered hacking. And the terminology changes so frequently. Back then, everybody that did really anything with computers was a hacker. The idea of having a phone that you can hold in your hand and the cool things you could do, just really, the whole concept was exciting. It was just unknown at the time. And, you talk about phones and you talk about how we live off of them. The reality is, look at a family and look at what's going on. Can you walk into a house where nobody's, truly on the phone at the same time? I mean, you have people sitting on the couch just staring down at their phones. And, it's kind of one of those things where the phone has become part of our day-to-day life. And just like you said, you have multi-authentication and you have a lot of things going on. And from a bad actor standpoint, you start thinking about, well, what can I do? And how easy can I hack it? And I hate to say it, but the answer is it's very easy to hack phones. It's very easy to do a lot of things. And that's kind of where my drive comes in. I've always loved the technology. I've always enjoyed seeing how far you can push stuff. And when you start looking at phones and you start looking at what capabilities can I do on this phone, back in the early days, long before the internet, I was technically kind of doing the internet with bulletin boards. We had FidoNet, which was a way of transmitting messages. You can transmit a message from one end of the country to the other or across the world. And it could take days, but the message would get there eventually. And the whole process of the internet as it came to light was absolutely fascinating for me, because it was, a full world of amazement and things that you can do. And, you look at the generation today that's just graduating high school, that's just getting started. They don't know the foundations on how things are built or how things are together. And so, I call them the Minecraft generation, because they're so, they grew up on Minecraft and digging and digging and digging and digging and going down those holes to find things and put things together. And the reality is those guys are really good at hacking, because they really get the mindset through Minecraft for hacking, because it's all about the final prize. What is the final prize I'm aiming for? Well, I've got to get these blocks. I've got to build this furnace. I've got to do X, Y, and Z and put it together. What do you do with hacking? You dig and you dig and you dig and you dig until you find something. You put the pieces together, and now I have a compromise, or I have the ability to get in, or I have a lot of really cool things. And so that's why I call this generation the Minecraft generation. And some of them are really good and very sharp. So it's exciting to see, what kind of things they're going to do in their lifespan. You saw how I started simple without all the stuff, and these guys have everything at their fingertips.
Mhm. And also, you mentioned something very interesting, right? Because I believe like most of the people don't understand how important is come back to the basics, right? Come back to understanding the fundamentals, because many people want to be hacker but don't understand nothing about networking. For example, if you ask like how is working networking and what is the HTTP and why you have HTTPS, why the protocols, or why you are using this port and not another one. I want to go hacking, right? And I believe this is important. That's I want to move to the next question. Is like, how do you start there, or how do you? You started with you talk about your beginnings, right? But talking back to the moment that you're starting your professional career, how was at that moment?
So when my professional career started, I was already writing the cash register out of high school. And I learned that, back in the United States, back in those times, really the doors don't open unless you have the college degree. And so I went off to college. I met a lot of friends, a lot of people. We did a lot of amazing things. We'd always have LAN parties over the weekends. And when Diablo would come out, we bought it. We were ready to go Friday night. We'd bring in the pizza and we'd play until 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, have a couple hours of sleep, and then rinse and repeat until we finished the game, which was usually late on Sunday. And we would blow through the whole thing. But really, my professional career starting, it just kind of grew and blossomed into development. I had to make the decision: do I want to go networking path or development path? And I chose the development because it just kind of seemed like me. And over the years, I've always written software, probably 85-90% of my career, over the 35 years, writing in healthcare. And I've seen the rise of so many of the languages and the concepts and the ideas. I mean, you look at API is absolutely critical for everything. I mean, your phone, the way that it communicates and to get data is through APIs, company to company, B to B, whatever, everything through API, and the knowing how it all comes together. And so your hackers, and if you really want to learn, and I love how you talked about the foundations and the TCP/IP stack and the SYNAC, that you didn't mention. But once you start looking at all the IP protocols and the layers, that you run into, everything from the physical up, there's just so much there. And the crazy part is every layer has some capability for hacking and doing things. I'm not advocating to go out and start breaking into things or hacking, but when you understand how everything works, it's amazing because the lights come on. And when you use tools like Burp Suite for penetration testing, if you understand the request response, again, if you've gone down the development path and been writing web or any kind of applications in that area, you're going to understand what you see. And that gives you the ability to be a little bit craftier when you're testing and doing things internally, because as your company writes software, you really need to make sure that you're protecting it, you're protecting the data, you're protecting the customers and the reputation of the company by not writing something vulnerable or without the ability to break in. And kids coming out of college today don't have the security degrees, the security backgrounds, the security class. They just literally, are dumped, in the deep end and go, here you are, you graduated, here you go, good luck. And they're just dropped in. And so what happens is they write software to the best of their ability, not realizing that they're creating security issues or things. And so when you've written software for a while, you learn those. You've written software for a while, you understand what you're looking at, and then taking it to that next level and layer, when you start looking at it from a security standpoint, then when you understand what you're looking at and you understand the pen testing, then you can actually start locking down and making sure that your program, the stuff that you guys write, your teams that work for you or that you work with, are doing things in a very wise manner.
In my point of view, you was talking. You say something very interesting. I always say in my podcast, maybe hackers or cyber professional, we are superheroes, and it's so funny you have a Superman behind, because also we have the ability to do the bad things because we have the knowledge. It's very easy. Only you need to go to internet, you read the manual, and you can do it, right? Maybe you cannot hack a super bank or something like that, or get information for the people. Like, for example, if you want to do, pass in the Google Document, you can do SLQI, like injection or something like that. It's very easy, right? But we don't do it because we want to do the things in the right way. And that's why I believe it's very important to start to that people understand the thing you are doing, right? It's like secure software. And I believe like that's the starting point. But like we are talking about secure API, secure endpoints, uh, web application firewalls. But I believe the best starting point is like create secure code, right? And that's
Mhm.
something I believe you can know about that, right?
Right. Well, you know, and the reality is, you know, the tools are like regression testing. The tools are important. You should have tools. You should have something that's looking at your, you know, dependencies, that are looking at your static code analysis tools, because those are important to know and grow with. Did I write something? Did I miss something? And those tools will help you to know that. The reality, though, is some of the things that you can do, the tools aren't going to catch. If I have, for example, a multi-tenant system is where, think of a bank, think of a bank's UI, the entry point, the website. I log in, Albert logs in, we have our own accounts, our own data. I should not be able to log in and see Albert's data. Albert should not be able to see my data, and I shouldn't be able to transfer any money from one account to another. And so you start looking at that, and that's where the secure coding comes into place. You know, for example, you know, one of the programs that I wrote, the last big program that I was part of, was a medication prescribing system. And so the reality is I could go in there, and if it wasn't secure, what if I could prescribe meds, any kind of med, to anybody, and bypass all the controls and the things? You know, I might do something that could injure somebody or hurt somebody or kill somebody. So, you know, you have to be secure, you know, and locked down and make sure that everything that you're doing is safe and validated. And that's why, you know, I always talk about APIs, because with APIs, you know, there's a lot of great things you can do with them, and they're very beneficial. And that's why you need things like role-based access. You know, the account that I'm logging in, can I do this option or this endpoint? Or what, I can hit the endpoint, but should I be able to do what I'm doing? Should I be able to read the data that I'm reading? Can I see data from one account to another? You know, a fun story that I always share is at AWS reInvent last year. I had a guy come up to our booth. He looked at, you know, who's Mend, and I, you know, explained who we were, what we did. And he said, well, you know, I write clean software. You know, I don't need you guys. I don't need anybody in here. I'm just kind of walking around. I'm just here for AWS. I said, great. Come to my computer. And I had Burp Suite. And so I asked him for permission. I said, look, I'm going to show you something. I need your permission to create 2 accounts. And I'm going to show you that I can do something that you probably did not account for. And the guy said, yeah, go ahead. And so I did. I created 2 accounts, and then I proceeded to steal data from one account to the other right in front of him. And, you know, explaining, well, a few things, you know, the way that I can tell that you've designed your system, it's insecure because of X, Y, and Z. The way you're doing X, Y, and Z is, you know, you should be thinking about this, and this. And really, you know, just kind of taught him a lesson right there, and explained. I said, you know, tools are important. They have their place, but good coding practices are more key and important. Nothing's going to be able to detect your multi-tenant crossing. You know, there's stuff out there that claims it can, but if you go from an ID5 to an ID6, the question becomes, how does this tool know? And it just simply can't. And so that's where the secure coding becomes key, because nothing's going to capture it except for the developer knowing the system.
Of course, and also like I see many times like something I was talking with I have a friend here in Spain. He is a specialist in secure code, and he's creating an academy only for secure coding here in Spain. And the thing is like he explained me, and I believe it's like very, very, very good stories. Like you go to the school and everyone teach you. You have boot camps today. You have
Mhm.
videos to learn. You have everywhere, but no one teach you how you can secure your code. You know,
Right.
and like the companies is looking for developers every day, and you can go to LinkedIn and you can check the offers, and everywhere is like looking for developers, mid senior, and today one guy with 1 year is like considered many times like mid senior, because he's looking for a professional with experience and don't have it because many people is not able to do it. And the problem
Right.
is maybe the guy like with 1 year, maybe if he know what he's doing and have a expertise background, but it's so hard to in 1 year get the possibility to understand what means secure code. And
Right.
this at that point is where appears people like you, right, with the knowledge and experience to explain to the people that side that here I want to write to what are you doing, like how do you think the people can learn like secure coding? What do you believe can be the good path if you want to learn about it?
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. And I've got a great answer. Open source communities. And the reason for that is, think about it this way. These guys need people to help. And if you've only been programming a year, guess what? You need to grow. You need to learn. And there's no better way to learn than by actually doing or having a project to work on. If I were to tell you, go build me a car, but I don't show you what a car looks like, or I don't give you the details on the car, you're going to kind of come back with something that's not a car, or what we would call a car. Now, if I gave you an example of what the car looks like and say, go make it run, did I explain? Are we talking electric? Are we talking gas? Are we talking an 8-cylinder or 12-cylinder? I mean, what are we talking about? Are we talking a 3-cylinder? I mean, the reality is, if you want to learn and grow, the open source community is great because it gives you that opportunity to, all the languages you can ever imagine are out there being used, and you can help contribute back. And when you write stuff, you're going to be paired with people, or people will be reviewing the work you do that will be brutal and either brutally honest or brutally just because of your work. And so the reality is when you're doing the open source community, I'm not trying to sway you by saying that. I'm just trying to say, look, find a good project that has a lot of contributors in there. Let them know, hey, look, I'm brand new. I'm a year in. I'm 2 years in. I just love to help and communicate, to help the community, and they're going to help you. And as you do that, you're going to learn that, hey, secure coding practices, because people will review your code or actually use it and go, hey, look, you've got these problems, and let you know that, hey, I found these vulnerabilities. I found these problems with your code. Would you please go fix them? We do that frequently as a company that I work for. We let people know, the community, hey, we found stuff in your system. You probably need to go fix it. And there's that's happening all over the place. And there's nothing better for your resume than to point it back and say, I wrote this code. Here it is. You want to know how I write code? Here you go. It's a portfolio. It's wide open. It's open source. You can see it. You can play with it. You can do whatever you want with it. That way, when you're moving from company to company or wanting to move up the ladder, you can't bring your code that you've worked on. If you're working for a company, you can't copy it. You can't keep it at home. It's their property. So when you leave a company, you have nothing. And by having the open source, guess what? You now have something. You can point back to it and say, I did this. You want to know how I write code? Go take a look.
That's a super good advice. Maybe one of the best I never hear. And because what happened many times, I am a little bit, start people know me a little bit and start to ask me, I'm developer. I started in my career in developing. I want to move to cybersecurity, or some people want to start in cybersecurity and have some knowledge about developing or coding and say, hey, what I can do, right? I don't
Right.
have ideas. I don't have the time. I don't have like what a better starting point like that, because as you mentioned, it's something you can bring with you. Like always, you
Right.
can put your name, like ID like that, this is my code, and it's like a demo. Because in most of the cases, when you are going to some companies, and you mentioned like asking you for your portfolio, and many people doesn't have a portfolio in 2024. It's incredible, but it's true, and
Yes.
it's happening. And if you hire people, you're gonna see with time. And that's advice is like very, very good one. But also I want to think like, okay, if I want to start from the beginning, like where do you believe can be imagine someone is hearing us and it's like listen to your story and it's like, wow, I really like it, that I want to start to do coding. I want to do secure coding. I want to learn how to do it because I believe it's interesting and maybe I can create like secure coding for companies or whatever. Because
Mhm.
where do you believe can be the best starting point?
So it's all
Because
about
maybe
passion.
sorry,
No,
Chris. Because maybe starting in this kind of project, like more open source community, it's like more. I believe it's like if you are starting from the beginning, it's not your place.
right. Well, it's the very beginning is, what do I want to do? If you're chasing programming for money, it's a and you just it's never really good. If you're chasing it for money, you can be a developer. You're never going to be a great developer. And I say that because the people that I've known over my life, my career, the people I've mentored, the trained, I've had somebody walk in the door that had never coded before, but had the passion, had the logic. They were a math major, and the logic was solid. And if you have the thought process and you have the logic, you're going to go very far. If you just are chasing programming or IT for the money, you're not going to get all that much enjoyment out of it, because honestly, programming is one of those things that if you're not passionate about, it's a love-hate, because the computer only takes things a certain way. And if you're not willing to bend to the computer's way of doing things, you're just always going to be fighting it. And it's like trying to cut a piece of metal with your finger. You'll never be able to do it. With the right tool, you can. And that's how programming is learning the tools that are out there, learning the things, finding your passion. Because programming, again, there's so many aspects to it. Yeah, the front end, the UI, the graphics, the HTML, the JavaScript, those kind of things. Those are cool, exciting, and also kind of a pain in the butt. I'm great at both, back end and front end. And I can tell you that for those who haven't played with JavaScript, it's an amazing language, but it's also something that just really just defies all logic in a lot of ways. And you start looking at the back end, working with the database, working with the stored procedures. Do I work with the indexes, and how do I do things to be very tweaked and efficient? I'm used to writing systems that can have billions of transactions a day and runs flawlessly. But if you're brand new, you look at the stuff, you don't know the why. And so you start learning how to build things together and where to start. And, honestly, if you want to get into programming, the back end is a good place to start. Learn the database, learn how data sits, how data communicates, how to pull that data out and share that data through APIs. And then once you start getting familiar there, then you can start looking at the front end. But knowing the front and back is key to really do a lot of really cool things over your career.
Mm-hmm. And I would tell you something. Maybe you're gonna kill me, but what do you think about PHP? Because many people hate PHP, but
Next question. Next
no,
question.
no, like I think like that can be a very interesting point of view from your side because many people hate PHP, okay, and many people say PHP is gonna die, PHP gonna disappear, but it's like maybe 20 years, 35 years of PHP or maybe more, and still there. I mean, maybe the 50% of internet is working with PHP. It's a backend.
Right.
It's a backend, and if you want starting, maybe it can be a good starting point because you have a lot of information or maybe a lot of places where you can learn PHP. That's why
Right.
I did the question. Like, what is your opinion about PHP? You believe like could be a good starting point or not?
It's a good starting point. I mean, honestly, the question becomes really, what do you want to achieve? What do you want to do? I view, I'm going to really make a lot of people mad when I say this.
That's why I have the podcast. Then don't be worried about that.
This is being edited out right now. The reality is PHP does have its place. PHP does have good value. Where a lot of people will get mad is I do not see PHP as an enterprise level language. And I say that because I honestly, throughout my entire career, have never seen any core application that runs billions of processes running in PHP. Now, PHP does have its place. It's great for throwing together front ends, doing some simple back end stuff. That's like classic ASP. It has its place. I feel like we've moved on since then. You can do a lot of stuff with classic or with native Java, doing APIs and front end and things like that. You can do a lot of things with the .NET framework and multiple languages out there. You can do amazing things. I mean, what's not stopping you from using Golang to do a port listen on 80 or 443 and actually do sending, stuff across the wire? I mean, there's nothing stopping you from taking any language and doing it. That would just be a really weird way of doing it, but it's possible. But the reality is when you're looking at PHP, if you really want to get to some of the basics, take a step back and look at some of the scripting languages like Python. Python is an excellent language to start learning logic. There's tons of stuff out there to help you learn Python. Python is being used by networking people today. I mean, you have people that are not developers using Python, which is it is a coding language, and it's scripting, but you can really do a lot of things with Python today that you couldn't do in the early days. And, why not, right? So, I mean, PHP does have its place, like classic ASP. All the languages do have their place. It's all about the right tool for the right job. And so PHP, not an enterprise level language, but it does have its place.
Mm-hmm. But I want to keep my point here, right? Because same you mentioned, like PHP from my point of view, I have the same point of view. Like maybe it's not the fastest backend of coding or maybe way to connect platforms, but today you have a lot of platforms and information about PHP, and maybe it can be a good starting point, because if you work, maybe for me, one good place where you can start in like cybersecurity and secure coding and exploding things is like Bug Bounty. And in Bug Bounty, you can find a lot of places with PHP, and that's why like it's a place where you can learn a language. I have to say with you, like I believe if you want to start and you want to understand the logics, from my point of view, Python is much better because it's easy to understand the logic of coding. But if you want to then step forward, like can be a good starting point to get some achievements, right? Like, okay, I get my first bounty and I'm happy. I get $300 or $400, and I can show to the people I hacked with NSA, for example, something like that. That's only the point of view from my side. But it's very interesting because you mentioned like logics and about that. And what do you think then when the people start to thinking or saying like in 2 years we don't have more code, more programmers because everything we will do by AI or artificial intelligence? Or what is your point of view about artificial intelligence? Because you know what? Why I did a post like few days ago and in my LinkedIn in Spanish, and the people say, "Oh, you are coding with ChatGPT or whatever." Like, yes, I can code with ChatGPT because it helped me a lot, and I understand what it's writing.
Right.
If I don't understand the coding, that doesn't work. But a few days ago, I was listening like Linux Dober have a podcast or whatever, and he's saying, some point very interesting. He said, we're starting with the coding like in the basics, and every day we are creating coding more easy to write. Like we have Python today, and a few years ago, like we are using like COBOL and something we was talking about, and today is more easy to write. But and why not the future can be something like language models where you can talk to the computer and create the application, right? The only problem here, and it's like, and that's why I want your opinion, is like the trash code is launching this application. And I know I'm talking a lot, but I want your opinion of all these points.
Hopefully I remember all the points. So really, for the most part, AI does amazing things. The LLMs, AI, it's fascinating. I actually do a lot of model playing at home. I do my own training. I do a lot of things because I want to know and understand. It kind of goes back to that driving factor. What is exciting for you? What do you enjoy? And so let me simplify it down. AI is amazing for programming. It will really accelerate your capabilities day one. If I were to go in and here's a great example, and it may have been your post that I jokingly put this on, but there was a recent AI post that I literally just posted this, and so I'm going to share it right here, so you get to hear me talk about it and not just read it. But the reality is this: I can open up ChatGPT, I can ask it, create an endpoint, and you can pick your language. You could even put PHP, but I'm just going to go ahead and use C#. So go out, create a endpoint, API endpoint for me in C# that allows and uses JWT tokens. That is a common authentication method for today. It's going to spit code out. Then you can say, hey, create an endpoint with some parameters, first name, last name, some basic stuff, right? So it does, it spits it all out. Does it compile? Yes. Does it work? Yes. Is it right? No. And the reason why is because now I can take that and post that same code it gave me back to AI. And then I can say, is this secure? And it comes back and it says, no, it's not secure. Well, would you create a secure version for me? Sure, hold on. And then it spits it out. Why didn't it do it on the first shot? Why did it give me code that was not secure? Why did it just spit junk out? And the problem with AI today, it's getting better, but today it's 52% wrong. And it hallucinates, it gives you wrong answers because depending on how it was trained, the model you're looking at, where does things come from? And so that human factor needs to be in there. Back when we did early development before AI, we would go to places like Stack Overflow. We would have an idea. I need to do a file upload. I need to be able to log. I need to be able to do something. And you would always find where people had the same questions and the answer was there, code snippets. And you could take those snippets and apply those kind of like a chef in a kitchen. You put those ingredients in. Here's the logging. Here's the file upload. Here's this and this and this. And it would get you to where you wanted to go. It wasn't secure, just like AI. You have to know security. Now, you take that, you take AI and you say, look, back to your PHP. I want to do X, Y, and Z in PHP. I have an image. I want hover overs in these given regions. I've highlighted them. Please create a PHP front end for me with the CSS that does the map over. So if I mouse over, it does this and this. It will do it for you. It will honestly do it for you and do an okay job. The thing is with it, you just have to be smart to know what was generated. And again, just like Stack Overflow, take it, think about how that fits into the stuff you're doing, and it helps you. Now, let me also throw another side because, I'm just kind of sharing a lot with AI. I love AI. I've been on several panels talking about it, the guardrails, the security aspect, because there's so much to it. But the other thing that AI does for you too is it gives you the ability to say, hey, according to my tool, I have cross-site script forgery. What is that? I can ask ChatGPT, what is this? And it gives you the answer. Give me an example in C#. It gives you the answer. Give me a fixed, secure version of this. Give me an example that I can see of a secured method that takes care of that, or directory traversal, or store cross-site scripting, or SQL injection, or. So I can start asking it and getting that information. So as an education, as something to help you get started, hey, I need to be able to do a simple endpoint. Here you go. It gives you that foundation to work from, but like a chef in the kitchen, you just can't throw stuff in there and hope that you have something that is flavorful, because it's not. You've got to know what you're doing.
And also, I want to say something like I am one of I was invited to the third version of ChatGPT, and also I was invited also for the Twitch version of the Google, because I am a partner with Google, it's a good partner. And I was trying like the new tool that I remember is EDX, and can create code, like you can do coding and whatever you want to do, whatever. That the main problem there with the security is logic, right? Maybe you can create like a piece of code, but the logic is not working, because maybe you can have exploitation using the bad logic of the AI. There is where I believe need to improve a lot, but also you have an application like Sneak, for example, is using AI to discover like vulnerabilities. Like something you mentioned, like it's a question of how you train your AI, right? And today we are seeing like many AIs is working with agents, and I believe this is just the beginning, because if we are thinking like 1 year ago, that this, the movement forward in 1 year or 2 years, like it's crazy. And I am very excited about we're gonna have it in maybe in 2 years in the future, because the movement is in that way. I believe it's crazy, but
Right.
there's another point I want to write with you, because also you create secure code, but you need to do the protection of the code. And more of the bad actors or delinquents are using this artificial intelligence to hack systems. Like
Mhm.
you are working with several companies and you are doing like secure code, and sure you are finding like some people is trying to get benefits or profits from your code. And you can explain to us some situations you was having in the last months or the last years, or something interesting for the people can be like, and the situation you felt like someone was trying to hack your systems, or if this happens or not.
The AI tools for hacking are numerous. There's amazing things out there. And, for those who have seen the movie Maverick, the comment is, you can do anything. And, is it the plane? No, it's the pilot in the box. It's the person flying the plane that makes the plane good or bad. And that's kind of the way we are with AI tools today, because there's a lot of penetration testing tools and other things that are out there that will go attack on your behalf and do things. And the question is are you pointing to your code or somebody else's? Are you pointing to production, or are you pointing to a test environment? Where are you pointing? What are you doing? And you can quickly overwhelm systems out there. If they're not prepared, they don't have the right kind of environments in place, you can quickly take down somebody by accident using these tools. And the question becomes, are you a white hat? Are you doing it ethically? Are you a gray hat where you sit on the fence and you kind of do a little both good and bad? Or are you a black hat where you're actually out there trying to do harm? And so the question becomes, really who's at the keyboard and what kind of benefit are they aiming for? If you're aiming to do, to really help and make a system better, you absolutely can. The tools that are coming out, there's lots of great companies doing lots of amazing things in the realm of AI, but there's also some maliciousness being done as well under the guise of being good. And so, really, it's just one of those things where, AI is an amazing tool. You just have to learn how to use it and modify it, kind of like development. Get it to do what you want it to do, by working with it and getting it to do it.
And also, I want to say like 75% of the attacks of the companies come from phishing. Then today, many bad actors are using artificial intelligence to do like crawling or taking information from LinkedIn, send emails to the people from the companies. And today with AI, you can study perfectly your victim, and you can create like a very specific email for that person, right? And that's why I say that, and that's why I want your opinion. Like many times you send to the companies like, hey, this is a click jacking, or like many companies don't consider click jacking uh, a vulnerability. And I believe that's not wrong, because it's wrong and it's wrong approach. Because if we are talking about from the point of sight, like, okay, what benefit or what you can take it from the error, it's like, okay, you don't have access to the information. But if I am a bad actor, I can create a login panel at the front of your website. It's like very dangerous.
Oh
Then
yeah.
then that's why I believe like coding and security coding in that side, it's very interesting and very important for every company. And I want to say like you have some plan of the future to create some information about that. I know you have your LinkedIn and you have your information and whatever, but I don't know if you are thinking to get some course or create some content for that, because I believe like your experience is very important. And everyone needs to share, know about that.
Yes. So the company I work for, men.io, take a look at it here in a couple of weeks. I can't share anything, but we have some amazing things coming out. I'll leave it there, but in a couple of weeks, I don't know when this releases. Go take a look at it, and I can't say any more, but we're doing some cool stuff.
Just stay tuned, right?
Stay tuned. Stay tuned.
Okay, man. We have the last minutes. I don't know if we want to talk about some specific specific thing before to end the conversation. But I believe we are talking about cybersecurity, cybercrime. We are talking about AI, and I believe that's a very, very interesting chat. And I believe it's going to be very interesting for everyone. Then from my side, I don't have more questions because then I don't know if you want to talk something yet before to end the conversation or.
Yeah. So if you're somebody that's interested in getting into cybersecurity, because I'm asked frequently on LinkedIn, I do a lot of work on LinkedIn. So, go look at my profile. I'm sure it'll be in the show notes. The big thing to look at and think about is cybersecurity. Why are you getting in? What are you wanting to do similar to programming? If you have that programming background, cybersecurity is extremely fun and a lot of great things can come out of it. The question becomes, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go with it? And, you can easily start off as an intern over the summer, go find a company. My interns always loved me because what we would do is I would take our security tool, find the worst of the worst things that show up and have the interns come in, look at it and ask the question, is this something that can be exploited? And if so, then turn around, go to Burp Suite and let's go for it. I'm not having them sit in the corner writing reports or doing anything, boring. I have fun. And so when you're looking at your intern programs, if you're still in school, look at what they're going to do, what kind of fun things you can do with them and on that team, how much you're going to learn. A lot of cyber programs are understaffed. And so you're going to find that the ratios are tight. Security champions are amazing. When you start thinking about what security champions can do for your program. If you're actually running a program, and you're stressed out and you don't have those relationships with developers, give them a phone call, pick up the phone and say, hello, how was your weekend? How are things going? And just get to know them as a person, because when you start learning who they are as a person and you start getting to the point where when I pick up the phone and I reach out to Albert and Albert's like, okay, Chris, what's wrong now? That's a bad spot to be in. But if I call Albert and he's like, all right, is this personal or is this work? You've hit a better spot, but the reality, that relationship, when you have a developer on the security team, and again, if you're getting into AppSec, that developer background is critical for success. A lot of companies won't even look at you if you don't have it for this very reason, because as a developer on the security team, you can look at and filter out the noise. So you're not just throwing crap over the wall to the developers and saying, guess what? Found all this stuff. Good luck. I think it's bad. Now you can say, look, we found stuff. It's bad. I need it addressed. And here's the information behind it.
Totally agree with you. Then I don't have anything anymore to say. I believe you say everything. The last thing I want to say is Chris, thank you very much for coming. It was a pleasure. And I will put all your links in the comment box. And thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me, Albert. I really appreciated this and enjoyed our conversation.
No, my pleasure, man. Keep in contact, bro. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.